And we finish in National 2 West this week. And as you can see, I am joined this week by a guest in the form of freelance sports journalist and photographer with the rugby paper, Josh Thomas, who I know has been following this division very closely this season. So, Josh, welcome along to the show and thanks so much for joining us.
No problem at all. And thank you for inviting me on. It's much appreciated.
No, it's brilliant to get kind of your insight into National 2 West, Josh. And I'm sure you would have seen last Saturday's rearranged fixture and the result between league leaders Camborne and Cinderford, with the table toppers suffering their first setback since the end of September as they were beaten 43-24 at Dockham Road. I mean, first and foremost, Josh, what did you kind of make of that scoreline? I think the second part of the question, how big could this be going into kind of the second half of the season?
First off, it's quite surprising for them to lose by 43 points. I know they've been quite sound defensively, but we've had some big results this season. For example, Red Roof early in the season when they beat Luctonians. I don't think Luctonians had lost before then. And then Red Roof, who of course had been pushing away, got that victory. It just shows how close this league is. Camborne, the lowest points um, um, after Luctonians, actually, funny enough, with 275 points conceded. So their defense is really good. To come into the game and with 9 wins from 10 games is exceptional, really. And we should be looking at what they had. Well, I know the scoreline at the end of the day is what you reflect, and I have no doubt they'll bounce back. But for 9 wins in 10 games before that is an incredible achievement.
Yeah, I think you're very right to highlight that, Josh, in terms of kind of both sides of the ball for Campbell. They've been excellent in attack this season. They've also been strong in defence, as you say, which probably highlights the brilliant job that fourth place Cinderford did last weekend. I know hooker Nathan Taylor scored his 100th National League Rugby try, so congratulations to him. But a fantastic win for Cinderford. And as Josh says there, it just shows the quality of National 2 West, which continues to produce week in, week out. And I know that result means Campbell are now 6 points clear at the top of the table after Taunton defeated Macclesfield 55-33 away from home last week. The Titans moving back up to second and level on points with third place Clifton. So just as we just mentioned there, just to bring up the table in front of me and Josh, confirmation that Camborne do remain top, but now 9 points separates that cluster of teams at the summit of the table. And at the bottom, round 11 saw Devonport Services secure a consecutive home wins, arguably their best performance of the campaign, saw them defeat Loughborough Students 17-0. It's now two victories it was in November for Ben Russell's side, which just gives them a platform to work from going into the Christmas period. So we've kind of touched on Camborne at the top of the table there, Josh, but is anybody, when you've been on your travels this year in National 2 West, that's stood out for you? Any other sides that are kind of impressed elsewhere in National 2 West?
I have to say, Red Roof. I went there back a few weeks ago when they played Luctonians. We mentioned, of course, that was the game they actually ended Luctonians' run of 4 games. I enjoyed going to Luctonians last year as well. Some really good teams, but Red Roof this season just shown how great they are. They're a great club, great people. But what I really was impressed was that fact that week before they had lost to Old Reds, they gave everything, 40-38 up with about minutes to go, and Old Reds came back and made it 45-40. A real sickener, and there were players on the pitch absolutely destroyed by that in a way. They gave everything, and they just felt to lose that after giving everything was just massive, massive disappointment. But to come back the week later and go on a week themselves and to beat Liftonians 38-29, I think it was incredible. Clifton, 6 Essex wins. The record speaks for themselves. And of course, coming up, I think they're playing Camborne on this Saturday. So it couldn't have come at a better time for them. We're going to see the character of what Camborne have against the league's informed team. And again, we can talk about later just how great it is, but it's going to be a real six to get 6 wins in this league. I think it's the best one of the season, or one of the best, and it's just incredible. But I always have time for Hornets as well. Back-to-back promotions a couple of years ago. I think their quest is to stay in the league. They've done that. They've rebuilt. They've strengthened. And then this season, to start the season with 4 wins out of 5, and I think their only defeat in that was Camborne. So not a mean team. And I know they haven't won in 3, but they have done really well. I think it's, and I think last season to finish 12 and now they're ninth position at the moment just shows the great work that the likes of Jack John Richardson, and all the players that club have done in that time is incredible.
Yeah, no, couldn't agree more with that, Josh. I've been mentioned Hornets quite a few times on the National 2 West sections of this show. They have made a brilliant start, a really strong start to this season. And you mentioned a brilliant point about Redruth in terms of them sort of bouncing back from that result earlier in the season against Old Reds to beat Luctonians. And in a way, Redruth have showed that bounce back ability again over in November. They lost to Devonport Services, but picked up two pretty crucial wins against Macclesfield, and I think it was Hinckley as well before the break before December. So two really good teams to pick out there, Josh. And just coming on to the fixtures this weekend, just on a couple of the teams Josh mentioned before, as he quite rightly pointed out, Hornets are at home this weekend to Devonport Services. And as we mentioned, Devonport come into that game off the back of 2 consecutive home wins, but they'll be out to try and secure a first away success of the season on Saturday afternoon. And he also mentioned Redruth, who are looking to build on those back-to-back wins that I mentioned when they take on a Taunton side, but that's going to be very difficult with the second place club having won all 5 of their home games thus far. But I guess, Josh, one of the fixtures of the weekend, and you did highlight it a little bit before, is Camborne going up against Clifton, 2 of the top 3 sides in action on Saturday. It's a 2 p.m. kickoff, by the way, for anybody who's thinking of heading down to that game in Cornwall. I know elsewhere it's been publicised as a 2:30 game kickoff, but it is a 2 p.m. game. But it probably goes back to what you said at the top, Josh, that it's such a competitive league, it's such a high standard of league, and this game to kick off the Christmas period feels like an early Christmas present, doesn't it?
More like a Christmas cracker.
Nice. So much better than me, Josh. So much better than me.
No, definitely. And I think it's like you said earlier, the cluster of those teams, 4 teams, 9 points in it. And any side to win, if Camborne get the win, they could really increase their lead. While of course, if Clifton get the win, they really move their behind them. And if you think about it, anything could happen. If Taunton win 2, there could only be 1 point between the 3 sides, or at least at 2. It's a very closely competitive. It's hard to call, but I would love to see how Camborne now do after last week's defeat. It's important to have the 9 wins out of 10, but then to lose last week, they'll want to win. They want to get back to winning ways, and it's going to be such a way. But against the side who've won the last 6 games, it's going to be a real top of the title clash.
Yeah,
Sorry, top of the table clash.
yeah, and I absolutely agree with you, Josh. I mean, you've summed it up pretty perfectly. The table toppers will be looking for an instant response. They did show that earlier in the season when they were beaten by Loughborough and went on that winning run before. Josh rightly said at the top, they were beaten by Cinderford last weekend. And Clifton are one of the form teams in the league at the moment, and the Lavender and Blacks will be looking to change the dynamic again at the top of the National 2 West tree on Saturday afternoon. Again, it is a 2 p.m. kickoff between Camborne and Clifton. Elsewhere then, just to wrap up the National 2 West segment of the show, Cinderford, who beat Camborne last week, go to Bourneville, and just behind Bourneville in the table are 11th place Exeter University, who host Luctonians. Elsewhere, Loughborough Students take on Macclesfield. The Students are without a win in the last 7 games, but have the opportunity to put that right against Mac in the Midlands. And Mac sit 5 points behind 12th place Hinckley at the moment, with Chris Campbell's troops travelling to 6th placed Old Redcliffians in round 12.